At our anniversary party at the restaurant, my best friend's toddler looked up at my husband, reached out her tiny arms, and called him Daddy. Please stay with me as I tell you my story, because what happened after that moment broke me completely, but it also woke me up. For a moment, everything stopped. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The clink of glasses and soft background music seemed to vanish. I blinked, thinking I must have heard it wrong. But she said it again, louder this time, smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world. Daddy! My stomach turned. I looked at my husband. He had gone pale, his eyes wide, lips parted like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then I turned to Maya, my best friend since college. She quickly picked up her daughter and laughed awkwardly. Oh, she's just being silly, she said. You know how toddlers are. They call everyone daddy at this age. But her voice was shaking, and her hands, holding the child, weren't steady either. I felt like I was outside my body, watching the whole scene from above. I looked around the table. Everyone else had gone quiet. The waiter who had just brought us dessert gave a nervous glance and quickly walked away. I tried to speak, but no words came out. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I turned back to my husband. His eyes were locked on the floor. Not once did he look at me. Maya, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. What did she just say? She didn't mean it, she rushed to say. Kids repeat stuff. Maybe she heard it on TV. She was looking at him. I swear it's nothing, she said again, this time almost begging. But deep down, something was breaking. Something I couldn't ignore. My husband reached for my hand, but I pulled it back like it burned me. I stood up. The chair made a loud screech on the floor. Everyone in the restaurant turned to look. I didn't care. I just needed to get out. I needed air. I needed space. I walked straight out without looking back. The cool air hit my face, but it didn't calm me. I felt like I was going to throw up. My head was spinning. Could it really be true? Could Maya's daughter be my husband's child? It was our 10th anniversary, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I'd been planning the night for weeks, going over every little detail, from the restaurant to the playlist, even the way I wanted my hair to fall. I booked a table at our favorite spot downtown, the one with candlelight and soft jazz, where we used to go before life got busy. I found a long, silky red dress that hugged me just right. When I put it on that evening, I felt beautiful. I wanted to feel special, for him, for us. He came out of the bedroom in a navy suit and smiled like he used to in the early days. Wow, he said. You look stunning. I smiled back, trying to ignore the way that compliment felt a little too rehearsed. I told myself not to overthink it. Not tonight. On the way to the restaurant, we stopped to pick up Maya. She was coming with us, along with her little girl, Ella. Maya had been my best friend for almost a decade. We met during my final year of college when she transferred into one of my classes. She was loud, funny, and unfiltered, everything I wasn't. We clicked immediately. Over the years, we'd been through a lot together. I'd helped her move out of 2 apartments, cried with her through 3 breakups, and stood by her side when she found out she was pregnant and the father disappeared. When Maya gave birth, I was the one in the hospital with her. I held Ella before almost anyone else. I bought diapers, stayed overnight when she was too tired to function, and babysat whenever she needed a break. I never once felt resentful. I loved Ella like she was family, because they were my family. Maya said she didn't want to be alone on the night of our anniversary. It's just dinner, she said. You know, Ella behaves well. I'll sit on the other side of the table and keep her entertained. You two can still have your romantic moment. I hesitated, but she insisted. And honestly, I didn't want to hurt her feeling. She had been through so much. And I trusted her completely. There was no reason not to. Ella was 2 now, talkative, curious, and incredibly attached to both of us. She called me Auntie, and used to run into my arms every time I saw her. My husband was always sweet with her too. He had a soft spot for kids, and Ella adored him. That night, she was dressed in a frilly little pink dress, hair tied up in tiny puffs, looking like a doll. Maya looked happy too, all smiles, joking as we walked into the restaurant. It felt normal, familiar, comfortable. Nothing felt wrong. Not yet. The night started out beautifully. The lights in the restaurant were low and warm. The table was set with small candles, and soft music played somewhere in the background. The waiter led us to a cozy booth in the corner, just the way I had requested when I made the reservation. I sat down next to my husband, smiling as he helped me with my coat. Across from us, Maya was settling in with Ella, who was already trying to climb onto her chair. Everyone was dressed up. I had spent hours getting ready, makeup, hair, nails. I wore the dress he once said was his favorite. He leaned over and said I looked amazing. I felt proud of that, even if something about his voice didn't sound quite real. We ordered wine and toasted to 10 years of marriage. He made a joke about how I've put up with him longer than anyone else ever could. We laughed. Maya joined in, clinking her glass against ours. Ella was coloring on a kid's menu with a crayon, humming to herself. The waiter brought appetizers, and we started eating. I was in the middle of telling a story when I noticed Ella looking at my husband. She stared for a moment, her head tilted like she was thinking something through. Then, with a smile, she reached her arms toward him and said, "Daddy." The entire table went silent. My fork slipped and hit the plate with a sharp clang. I blinked, unsure if I heard her right. Maya's eyes snapped to her daughter, wide and frozen. My husband didn't move. He just stared ahead like time had stopped. Ella looked confused by the reaction. She said it again. "Daddy." She was smiling, innocent, proud of herself for recognizing him, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I felt the blood rush out of my face. I looked at Maya. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Finally, she said something about how kids mix things up, how Ella says silly things all the time. She forced a small laugh that didn't match her face. I looked at him. He finally turned to me slowly, like his neck weighed 100 pounds. His face was pale. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. Not one word. The waiter came back to check on us, and immediately sensed the tension. He asked if we needed anything, but no one answered. He walked away quickly. I felt like everything around me had blurred. The sound, the people, the warmth of the restaurant, it all faded into the background. I couldn't think clearly. Just one word had changed everything. Just one moment, and the world I thought I knew began to fall apart. Everything was still. No one at our table said a word. The air felt heavy, like it had thickened all around me. I sat frozen, staring at Ella, whose small hand was still reaching toward my husband. Her innocent smile didn't match the storm building inside me. Maya didn't blink. Her mouth was slightly open, like she was holding her breath. Her fingers slowly curled around Ella's tiny wrist and gently pulled her back toward her lap. She muttered something under her breath, her lips barely moving. She looked everywhere but at me. Across from me, my husband looked like he'd been slapped. His back was stiff, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. His eyes flicked toward me and then away, like even looking at me was too much. I swallowed hard and tried to speak, but my throat felt like it was closing. The words scratched as they came out. What did she just say? No one answered. I looked at Maya. What did she say? I asked again, louder this time. She laughed. It was small and broken. She's just tired, she said quickly. She doesn't know what she's saying. It's late. Tired? I repeated, my voice cracking. She said, "Daddy." And she was looking at him. Maya stood up suddenly, nearly knocking over her glass of water. She says things like that sometimes. She doesn't know what it means. She looked right at him. I snapped. The people at the next table turned their heads. I didn't care. My hands were shaking. My whole body was trembling. Is there something you want to tell me? Her eyes darted to my husband. He still hadn't said anything. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the seat. His jaw tightened, and finally he spoke. She's just a baby, he said, almost too quietly. She probably got confused. Let's not do this here. Confused? I could hear the disbelief in my own voice. You think I'm confused? He held his hand out like he was trying to calm me, but didn't move from his seat. Let's talk about this at home, please. I laughed bitterly. No, we're going to talk about this now. Maya lifted Ella in her arms, fumbling with the bag under the table. She's acting out. I should take her home. I didn't mean to ruin your night. I turned to her so fast she flinched. Why would she call him that, Maya? She didn't answer. She just shook her head and hugged Ella tightly. Then I looked at him again. Why won't you say anything? I whispered. Tell me the truth. Right now. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't know what you want me to say. Tell me it's not true, I said. Tell me this is some horrible mistake. He looked down again. And that was it. My chest felt like it was going to split open. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the rest of the clatter of dishes, the hushed voices, the footsteps of waiters trying to pretend they weren't listening. I pushed back my chair and stood. I wasn't thinking anymore. My legs moved on their own. I didn't grab my coat. I didn't look back. I walked straight out the door. Cold air hit my face, sharp and biting, but I barely felt it. Behind me, I heard someone call my name. I kept walking. The ride home was dead silent. He didn't try to touch me. Didn't say a word. I kept my face turned toward the window, watching the streetlights blur as they passed. My nails dug into my palms the whole way. My mind wasn't quiet. It was screaming, replaying Ella's voice again and again, as if it were on a loop I couldn't turn off. When we got home, I didn't wait for him to open his mouth. I walked straight into the living room, turned around and stared at him. How long? I asked. He blinked like he didn't understand. How long has it been going on? He rubbed his face. It's not what you think. Then explain it. Explain how a child I helped raise just called you daddy in the middle of our anniversary dinner. His mouth opened, then closed. His shoulders dropped. It was one time. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even asked if it happened. I'd asked how long. He gave me an answer I hadn't voiced. One time. That was what he chose to say. When? My voice was shaking. When did this happen? He didn't answer right away. I saw his eyes dart to the side, like maybe the details would hide in the shadows if he didn't look at me. It was a few years ago. You were out of town. That conference. Maya came over. We had drinks. I don't know. It just happened. I stood there, arms crossed so tightly across my chest I thought I might snap my own ribs. And you didn't think to tell me? It didn't mean anything, he said quickly. It was a mistake. I didn't think it would come back. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. You thought a child would just go away? I asked, laughing under my breath, bitter and raw. Did you know she was yours? He shook his head. No. I swear I didn't know. Maya never told me. I figured she would have said something if she thought. She lives with that child. She brings her around us. And you never wondered? Never thought she looked like you? Or sounded like you when she laughs? He ran his hands through his hair again, pacing now. I tried not to look for it, okay? I didn't want to believe it. I thought if I didn't ask, I wouldn't have to deal with it. Unbelievable. I stepped back from him, shaking my head. So while I trusted both of you, while I let her into our lives, brought her into our home, you were hoping she just wouldn't say anything. He didn't answer. You let me babysit your daughter, I whispered. You watched me hold her, feed her, take care of her. You let me love her. And you said nothing. He finally looked at me. I didn't know how. I stared at him for a long moment. Not crying. Not yelling. Just quiet. Numb. He stood there, helpless, trying to piece together a version of the story that didn't make him look like a monster. But monsters don't always roar. Sometimes they lie in silence. Sometimes they sit across from you every night and kiss your forehead like nothing's wrong. I didn't call her first. I couldn't. My hands were still shaking from the night before, and my head hadn't stopped pounding. But I needed to see her. I needed to look her in the eyes and hear her say it. I needed to hear the truth come out of her mouth. I drove over to her place without warning. She opened the door, holding Ella on her hip, her face pale the second she saw me. She didn't smile. She didn't say hello. Just slowly stepped aside and let me in. Ella reached for me like always. I stepped back. I didn't say anything. Maya set her down gently and told her to go play in her room. The door clicked shut behind the child, and then we were alone. The silence hung between us like a fog, thick and choking. So it's true, I said finally. My voice was low, flat. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't pretend. Her chin trembled, and her arms crossed tightly over her stomach. I never wanted it to happen like this. I blinked. Like what, Maya? Me finding out at a restaurant, in front of strangers? At my anniversary dinner? She opened her mouth, but I kept going. I was there for you, I said. I held your hand through that pregnancy. I cried with you when Ella was born. I stood beside you when you said you didn't know who the father was. I defended you when people whispered. And the whole time, you were sleeping with my husband. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I was scared, she whispered. I thought if I told you, he'd leave you. Or you'd hate me. Or both. I didn't want to lose everything. I stepped closer. So instead, you lied. You let me raise your child. You smiled in my face and let me believe we were sisters, when the whole time, you were playing house with my husband behind my back. I didn't plan it, she said quickly. It was never supposed to be like that. It just happened. We were drinking. I was lonely. You wanted him, I snapped. You knew what you were doing. And you knew I trusted you. She didn't deny it. That's what broke me the most. I loved him, she said, barely audible. The room went cold. I stared at her for a second, just long enough to see the guilt twist her face. Then I slapped her. It wasn't loud. It didn't echo. But it stopped everything. She gasped, stumbling back a step, her hand flying to her cheek. I didn't wait. I turned and walked out the door, my heart thudding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. I got back in my car and gripped the wheel, staring through the windshield without turning the key. For years, I thought I had two people I could count on. Now I had no one. I wasn't crying. Not yet. The tears would come later, when the full weight of it landed. But right then, sitting alone in that quiet car, one thing became clear. I'd been played. Carefully. For a long, long time. I didn't sleep that night. My body was still, but my mind kept digging. Even after everything I'd been told, something didn't sit right. The way they both spoke, the way they left things out. It felt like there was more. And if there was more, I needed to know all of it. So I got up, sat on the cold floor of our bedroom, and pulled his old laptop from the drawer. He rarely used it anymore, mostly relied on his phone, but I knew his habits better than he thought. I knew he never deleted anything fully, just moved things around out of sight. The password hadn't changed. I opened the browser first. Nothing obvious. Then his files. A folder named Work Docs caught my eye, not because of the name, but because the modified date was right around the time Ella would have been born. Inside, I found photos. Not work. Not documents. Pictures of a hospital room. A newborn wrapped in a pink blanket. Her eyes were closed, her mouth wide open in a cry. Maya was lying in the bed, sweaty and smiling. And there he was, standing beside her, one hand on the rail of the bed, the other reaching into the crib. His face wasn't blurred. He looked proud. There were more. One where he was holding the baby. Another where he was pressing a kiss to her forehead. All time-stamped. All real. I sat back and stared. The world around me went silent. So he had known. He didn't just suspect. He knew. He was there. In that moment. In the room. The story he gave me, the one time, the mistake, it wasn't just incomplete. It was a lie. And if he could lie about this, what else? I opened his old phone backups next. Dug through the messages. He hadn't deleted everything. There were gaps, clearly cleaned up, but enough remained. Casual exchanges with Maya. Then ones that grew more intimate. Her telling him about morning sickness. Him asking if she'd gone to the doctor yet. Photos of her belly. Her ultrasound. One message from him, months before Ella was born, read, "You sure you don't want me there?" "I'll come. Just say the word," she replied. "It'll be easier if you don't. But thank you for offering." I kept scrolling. Conversations after the birth, too. Her sending pictures. Him replying with emojis. Little hearts. "She looks just like you," he wrote one. "Like you. Not me." That part hit harder than I expected. They didn't talk every day, but enough. Enough to know it wasn't some accident. This wasn't a secret born from fear. It was a decision. Over and over again, they chose to keep this from me. To smile to my face. To let me raise that child like she was mine in every way except blood. And it wasn't just the betrayal. It was the coordination. The quiet teamwork behind my back. The pretending. I had built my life around people who were actively keeping me in the dark. By the time I closed the laptop, the sun was coming up. I sat in that pale morning light feeling like a stranger in my own house. Everything I thought I knew was now a performance. Every warm moment a staged scene. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a history I had no part in. One they built together while I lived in the illusion they created. I stopped crying. Stopped asking questions. There was no point anymore. I had all the answers I needed, and none of them came with apologies. Not real ones. Just excuses. So I shut down the noise in my head and started thinking clearly. Coldly. I wasn't going to fall apart anymore. I was going to end this on my own terms. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. Quietly. I found someone discreet, someone who listened more than he spoke. I didn't tell him everything. Just enough. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. We talked about assets, legal steps, and what I needed to start preparing. I left that office with a folder full of instructions and a new calm I hadn't felt in. Next, I found a clinic and scheduled a test. I told Maya I wanted to take Ella out for the afternoon. She didn't ask why. Maybe she was still guilty. Or maybe she thought I was finally forgiving her. Either way, she said yes. I brought Ella to a quiet lab out of town and handed over the sealed envelope 2 weeks later when the results came in. No drama. Just facts. DNA doesn't lie. He was the father. I didn't confront him. Not right away. I kept smiling when we passed each other in the hallway. I made dinner. Washed dishes. Slept beside him like nothing had changed. He was so used to me bending that he didn't notice I'd stopped. We co-owned a small business. Something we built in the early years when we still believed in shared dream. I handled most of the financial side, and while he focused on clients, I dealt with the paperwork. That made it easy. Quietly, I contacted a buyer. Someone who had been interested before. The deal moved faster than I expected. I sold my half and transferred the funds to a new account he didn't know existed. Then I found the apartment. Small, clean, nothing fancy. But it had sunlight and silence. 2 things I was starting to value more than I ever had before. I didn't pack. Not yet. I just kept a bag tucked in the trunk of my car. Ready. Every step I took gave me a little more breath, like I was loosening a grip I hadn't realized was choking me. I didn't want revenge that screamed. I wanted something that stung. Something quiet. Something that would stay with them long after I walked away. Because breaking someone's heart is one thing. But watching them realize you were never going to beg? That's a different kind of pain. I invited them both to dinner. The message was simple. No drama. Just a calm note saying I wanted to talk. That I was ready to move forward. I chose a restaurant downtown. Somewhere public, upscale, quiet enough for conversations to be heard, but not so loud that they could hide behind background noise. They arrived before me. I saw them through the window, sitting at the table together. He looked nervous. She looked hopeful. I walked in wearing a black dress, simple and clean. I didn't smile. I sat down and didn't waste time. I want to clear the air, I said. No more lies. Just the truth. They nodded. Maya even reached across the table, like we were all about to make peace. I pulled out a single envelope and placed it in front of them. He stared at it. She tilted her head, confused. I looked directly at Maya. It's a paternity test. I had it done 2 weeks ago. She blinked. It's positive, I added. He's Ella's father. The color drained from her face. My husband flinched, then reached for the envelope, but I stopped him. You don't need to read it. You already knew. I opened my purse again, pulled out a second envelope, and slid it across the table. These are the divorce papers. He opened his mouth to speak, but I kept going. I've sold my half of the business. I've moved out. The money's already in a separate account. I've spoken to a lawyer, and I'll be filing officially tomorrow. Around us, people had gone quiet. No one tried to hide the fact they were listening. Forks stopped clinking. Waiters stood still. It was like the whole restaurant froze mid-bite. Maya whispered, "You planned this?" I looked at her without blinking. "You planned your part for over a year. I figured I could take a few weeks for mine." He looked stunned, like the air had left his lungs. "You can't just." "I can." And I did. He leaned forward. "We can fix this." I leaned back. "You're going to need to fix yourself first." Maya stood up, as if trying to escape the spotlight, but it was too late. Every eye was on us. I stood too, took one last look at both of them, and walked out. Later, I heard Maya lost the legal battle over custody. She had no stable job, no support, and the court didn't take kindly to her lying about the father for years. He fought for visitation, but it wasn't the same. They didn't end up together, not that it would have mattered. I never looked back. He was left with a daughter he barely knew, a business he didn't understand, and a silence he couldn't talk his way out of. It's been months now. My apartment is quiet, filled with sunlight in the mornings and peace at night. There's no tension when I walk through the door, no pretending. I eat when I'm hungry, sleep when I'm tired, and spend my time rebuilding, slowly, intentionally. I've picked up new hobbies. I read more. I cook just for myself. The silence that once felt sharp now feels comforting. I've learned that peace isn't loud. It's soft, steady, and earned. I don't check their pages. I don't ask about them. Whatever chaos they're living in is theirs to manage. I let it go. I don't need revenge anymore. The truth did the job for me. To anyone listening, if someone betrays you, don't chase them. Don't beg them to care. Don't try to explain your worth. Just step back. Watch what happens when they're left with nothing but the damage they cause. You don't have to destroy yourself to make a point. Let them destroy themselves. They will. Was I too cold for walking away without a word, or did they deserve exactly that? I'd really love to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And hey, if stories like mine keep you hooked, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one.